How important do you think role models are for young scientists, particularly women? And do you have any role models?
I think role models can be extremely helpful, but I think they should be used with caution. I don't really like the idea of trying to sort of completely mimic someone's career, but I do actually think it's a very positive thing to have women in roles that you would aspire to.
In running your team, what leadership style works best for you?
I think I'm pretty hands-on, so I like to know all my staff very well, and I like to know them as individuals, not just as people in their work environment. And I like to try to identify individual strengths and then organise my team around those particular strengths and sort of accommodate each other's weaknesses, if you like.
Has there ever been a time where you felt like giving up on your scientific career?
I think it begins way back when you're doing your PhD. For me, I remember that as a time of particular uncertainty, not really being sure that I was good enough, not being sure whether I would get the results I needed. And then as one's career progresses, it's based on short-term contracts, it's based on getting grant funding. And inevitably, after the sort of hard work of trying to make progress, you're faced with the end of that grant and the uncertainty about whether you'll get another one, and just not being sure where the next job will be, I think does lead one to question whether it's right to continue in that way.
So what kept you going during those difficult times?
I think it was probably the fact that every time I came to the crunch point and making a decision, should I apply for a different sort of job, and I started to think in detail what that job might involve on a daily basis, I just realised that I had to keep going in science because it just excited me so much more than any of the other possibilities.
How do you balance your work with your family life?
Well, I think that's an ongoing challenge. I think I've always seen myself as much as a mother as a research scientist. I've tried to get a fairly even balance. That's involved working less than full time for periods of time when my children were quite young. I like to draw boundaries, and I like to make sure that I give everything to work while I'm at work. But although it's not always completely possible, once I walk away, then I think I have other priorities and I try to devote my time to those.
Do you think technology has helped or hindered your ability to achieve a work-life balance?
When I first had my children, it was pre-emails, pre-mobile phones, and sort of before teleconferencing or any of those things. And I think at first reflection, one would tend to think that all of those things have made it easier to be working when you're not actually sitting in a lab or an office. But when I think more carefully about it, I really am unsure that they're such a good thing all the time. I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier about trying to draw boundaries between the time when I'm at work and the time when I'm not at work. And I think they make work become too invasive.
If there was one thing you could change about scientific culture, what would it be?
There seems to be an expectation amongst some people that the only way to succeed in science is to sacrifice everything else. That the only way you can be successful is to work ridiculously long hours, to not have children, to only ever work full time. And I think that's really sad because I think that as a scientific community, we risk losing some of our most valuable individuals and some of the people with the greatest potential. And maybe it's a situation where you either have 5 people who are like that and are full-time, or you choose to have 10 people, each making a slightly smaller contribution. But actually the overall output, the overall benefits are so much better with more diversity, more variation. And actually I really much prefer working with people who are a bit more balanced, who don't just devote themselves completely to work. So yeah, I would like to see a bit of the pressure lifted off people to commit themselves 129% to their job.